and I took Lake City by quote-unquote $1 billion in the play-in game.
On the North Idaho Prepcast, we're all about that North Idaho life.
Man, you talk about Wallace and what they've been able to do this year. Quietly just being, the steady stalwart up north in District 1. They've been dominant.
From Bonners Ferry all the way down to Grangeville, we tackle the biggest stories in North Idaho sports.
This Genesee team is for real. We know we saw it last year. They're I think in the driver's seat to repeat.
It's the North Idaho Prepcast with Ryan Scaggs. That's right. Welcome in another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com, bringing you the biggest storylines in Districts 1 and 2 week in, week out here on a Wednesday morning, 10:15 local time. That's Pacific time here in North Idaho, of course. We are live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, X account. You can watch this Prepcast on replay anytime at those three destinations as well. You can also listen to the North Idaho Prepcast at IdahoSports.com, along with wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. My name is Brandon Baney. Let's bring in the guy you heard from the intro, Ryan Scaggs. Yo, what's up, Scaggs?
Not much. Just watching the trash can races going down the street, with that windstorm going on outside. So I had to stand up and look outside during the intro there, because I heard some crazy ruckus outside, and there was two trash cans literally just sailing down the street, rolling down the road.
Yeah, and I think already we have found our title here for the podcast, which is always great when we can knock that out in the first 30 seconds. Trash can races, sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. Yeah, I've got in my neighborhood, I'm looking out my window right now, and there's a gentleman across the street that's got a political flag up for the guy that won the presidential election. I won't say his name because we might get, flagged on YouTube or something. But the guy who won, he's got a big flag with his name on it, but that thing is hanging on by this much. It's about 2 seconds away from blowing away. So
I had to go down and take down my American flag this morning because I could hear it rocking quite a bit. I didn't want to rip the fascia board off my garage. So, yeah, had to be the responsible homeowner.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, big thanks to everybody that's tuning in live here this morning on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. We are here to talk about the biggest stories going on in North Idaho, not just in weather, but also sports. And maybe we'll have news at the top of the hour, though. I'm just kidding. Okay. The biggest story from the past week in North Idaho sports, I thought, was the Tri-State Wrestling Meet, hosted by North Idaho College, 53rd edition, which is just simply incredible. North Idaho College does such a great job year in, year out, putting on this signature event. North Idaho teams came up and represented very well. We even got a team to come up from the state of Ada. Meridian came up to compete in this bad boy because they knew there was going to be some big league talent here. Ultimately, a school from Washington takes the title, but Post Falls finishes second and beats out a really good Tahoma High from Washington as well.
Yeah, and Coach Booth did such a great job of that tournament. And it's grown so huge that they have to use the rec center as well as the Christensen Gymnasium there at NIC. This could have been the last edition on campus at NIC, just due to the size. I mean, they're talking about moving it possibly next year, hosting it at the Spokane Convention Center, which would be, great for fans. Because you're going to be able to put more rear ends in seats, but at the same time, it's, I love the friendly confines of Christensen for the finals, get under the lights and just gets loud and hectic and hot and crazy in there. And it's a ton of fun. This year's, affair was no different. It was awesome. Finals were phenomenal. A very competitive field this year too. And the Idaho and the local teams showed out well. We usually see Washington teams come over and do really well too. And you'll see some of those Montana schools really light on the Montana schools this year. Didn't see as many of them, but did see pretty heavy on the Washington side of things as far as coming back over for that. And Ording, a really, really good team from the state of Washington, ended up winning it, but Post Falls in a respectable second place, and they had a great showing in finals too. So, quite a bit of that was, very impressive. I was impressed with Coeur d'Alene and how they did, finishing sixth, and Lakeland, I think, was one of the pleasant surprises in the tournament, finishing in the top 10 position at 10th with 114.5 points. Getting a championship from Zach Teal at 98 pounds was awesome to see. But the number of and another championship from Garrett Leonard at 215 pounds, winning in a really tight decision, 4-3 in the championship match there. But the local kids did phenomenal. I mean, especially in the championship matches, you look at some of the kids. Lakeland was represented. Post Falls had multiple guys in the finals. Coeur d'Alene had a couple guys in the finals, with Gabe Larson getting second, Brock Armstrong winning at 165. And then Seth Martin obviously won for Post Falls at 190 against Jordan Tyler from Sandpoint. So, and then obviously we talked about Garrett Leonard as well being in that title match. And the local wrestlers looked great. And that's one of those events too. You look at that, you're like, man, I took 7th at Tri-State. That's awesome. To get a top 8 finish at Tri-State. The number of some of these brackets, that there was like one bracket I think I looked had 5 state champions in it. So, if you're going to finish in the top 8 at Tri-State, I mean, that's going to fare pretty well for the rest of your season. You can kind of hang your hat on that one as far as, it's going to certainly boost your seeding come state time too. And there was, some great wrestlers locally that did a phenomenal job at a great tournament. And that was really, really promising to see too.
Yeah, 4 individual champions. You mentioned them: Martin, Leonard, Teal, and Armstrong. And then the All North Idaho final with Tyler in there against Martin as well was fantastic. And then, Post Falls takes 2nd, Coeur d'Alene takes 6th, Lakeland takes 10th, Lake City finishes 14th, which is pretty good representation there. A fun tournament overall. And a lot of these guys, we'll be keeping an eye. Brock Armstrong, especially as a sophomore at Coeur d'Alene High, I think his stock really bumped up a notch after this weekend.
Absolutely. And there's guys too. I mean, look at some of the smaller school guys like Colton McLamtag from Priest River finished 3rd at 144, defeating Gunnar Whitlock from Lewiston. I mean, in a pin, that was phenomenal. So you're seeing some of these small school guys come in here and hold their own, which is super promising and awesome to see. And we talked about Colm last year. He was on my All North Idaho list. But, expect big things from him at Priest River this year. And, at the 3A tournament, he's gonna certainly hold his own and have himself a whale. I could see him, as long as he stays healthy, having himself a heck of a season, maybe finishing with a state championship. But there's some wrestlers out there that even guys that we talk about as like hammers, and guys like that, they finish like 7th. I mean, that's how tough this tournament is. Gage Lofton at 106 takes 5th, and there's guys that we've seen, compete for state championships. Ryder Seguin loses at 138 and takes 6th. That's the level of competition that was present at this event. And Nathan Booth from Lake City takes 5th, beating Jonathan Hansen from Timberlake. Just kind of going through some of the results, but phenomenal event. And, hats off again. NIC does such an amazing job with that tournament. And having run tournaments in the past myself, it's not an easy feat. I mean, you've got so many variables that are going on at one time between, table help, mat staff, bracket room, the announcer table, officials, everything else. There's all these things going on. You're juggling like 19 hats at a single time. And to have that thing go off without a hitch and do such a great job with that event in 2 separate locations on the same campus just says, volumes about, the work that Coach Booth and his crew put on this weekend.
Yep, it was really fun. And last night we did the Idaho Mat Chat Prepcast, which is our standalone wrestling only show. We do it every Tuesday night at 7:00 Pacific time here on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, X account, and Instagram as well. And first comment of the night, straight out of the gates, was from Coach Booth at NIC. He was watching last night, which was awesome. So
he was there recruiting too. So he was looking to stack his roster. He's already got some local kids on that team, and they're doing awesome this year so far. And you can expect big things from NIC this season. And I think they're only going to get better with some of the commits that they've already got, and especially some of the local kids that they've got. Seth Martin from Post Falls, namely, going to NIC next year to wrestle for the Cardinals. So it's awesome. I mean, it's a great event, and it's an opportunity to get the kids on campus, and for your team to build for the future. And, you run that for the kids, but you're also doing it for your program a little bit too selfishly as Coach Booth, because the rich are going to get richer with the number of talent that's in that room.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's a win-win situation for everybody all around. History being made. Garrett Leonard was the first Lake City wrestler to ever win a championship at Tri-State. And here is Travis Tyler in the chat. How about Jordan Tyler, Sandpoint's first finalist since 2016? We talked about it. He fell to Seth Martin from Post Falls in that all North Idaho final, but that also pretty signature event, momentous occurrence for Jordan Tyler at Sandpoint also.
You know, that's a program that has got history. I mean, you talk about the history of Sandpoint High School and what they were able to do going back to the late 90s, early 2000s with the teams that they had and the names and the Richalts and folks of that name. I mean, there's just Tony Hook, and you can go through the who's who list of guys that wrestled at Sandpoint High School. And Tyler's finding himself, you know, in that same, you know, mention with some of those guys. And if he can win a state championship at 5A this year, would be monumental for that program. And, you know, getting to the finals at Tri-State, that's a good first start coming out of the gate for the early in the season to kind of set the table for success later on down the year.
Yep, really fun. So we will keep an eye on all of the great wrestling action. We are going to do, now I say I'm not going to be involved in it, but a special pre-Christmas Eve edition of the Matt Chat Prepcast next Monday night. Same time, same place, different date. We usually do the Matt Chat on Tuesday. Well, next Tuesday is Christmas Eve, so we're going to do it Monday instead. And Paul Kingsbury graciously agreed to help host since, you know, I'm going to be traveling because it's, you know, one day before Christmas. So that's next Monday on IdahoSports.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Santa's showing up. Santa's coming.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Al Fontes was wearing a Santa hat last night on the show, which was a crack up. That was pretty funny. No doubt about it. So, okay. Let's switch gears and talk a little hoops. Ryan, we are finally past preview season here. Girls basketball is halfway over. Boys basketball, everybody's gotten at least 4 or 5 games under their belt. And so we're starting to see, okay, which teams are emerging, which teams are at the forefront. We've got coaches polls, brand new coaches polls that just dropped this morning. A lot of shakeup in the coaches polls. We had the media polls come out for girls basketball yesterday. Boys basketball will be tomorrow. We've got our power rankings at IdahoSports.com, and we've got actual data that we can use to assess which teams are actually the best. But the most important ranking that's out there, Ryan, is of course your North Idaho 9, where you take the 9 best boys basketball teams and the 9 best girls basketball teams, and you rank them 1 through 9 based upon, well, you tell me what the criteria are. Is it who's playing the best right now? Is it if they met on a neutral site in Indianapolis, who would win the head-to-head matchup? I mean, how are you defining the criteria for your North Idaho 9?
So I'm taking quality of wins, also the quality of losses. So schedule does matter at this point. I mean, strength of schedule definitely comes into play here. I look at the other polls as well, but also just the eye test based on how head-to-head, stat-wise, what's going on in the games, who was playing, who wasn't playing. So I do kind of factor everything into it when I do this. I do try to kind of keep it somewhat rather than just scoreboard watching and just ranking them based on scores and total points and whatnot. It's more, you know, who's playing hot right now, who played the difficult schedule at Hawaii and lost to, you know, the top 2 teams in the state of Oregon, which we'll see here in a second. But, you know, so we're looking at that stuff, and I say we, it's me. Speaking of myself in third person. But yeah, and just going over through that and looking at who's lost to who, who's beat who. So head-to-head does matter too. You get later in the year, head-to-heads, you sometimes almost have to go out the window because it's like you get that one fluke loss. And I'm sorry, but if you lose to like a 6-win team, guess what? You're not going to be ranked against a team that's like, you know, 16-2. But yeah, so we just go through that and kind of rank them 1 through 9. There's, you know, then you have the outliers. There's teams that are hanging on by a thread that are kind of lurking in the background, especially in the girls. There was like 4 teams that are right there too. Boys is so early in the year. I mean, this thing's going to change week to week. So we kind of just, it gives us a starting point to where we can have the revolving door of who's going to enter the rankings, and you can enter one week, be out of the rankings, and the next week you might be 6. You never know. So But with no further ado, I mean, I guess we can go through the list too.
Well, before we do, Sean Kane from the East Idaho Prepcast hopping in the chat, and he says, "I hope Ryan's eyes are not like the Heisman committees." It's a touchy. Well, you're a big Boise State fan. You've got your Broncos stuff on the wall behind you there.
Yes, and Ashton Genty was robbed.
Oh, I did, dude. I just noticed that. I didn't even notice that until now. Your name tag here for those that are watching the video says Ashton Genty was robbed. I got to be honest though, I didn't think we were going to go here, but let's just real quick circle to this. Okay,
yes, we can go down the rabbit trail real quick. Yeah.
Travis Hunter from Colorado wins the Heisman Trophy. Two-way player, wide receiver, and cornerback. That hasn't been done at that high of a level since Charles Woodson. And even, Charles Woodson, when he played, he kind of was moonlighting on offense. It was mostly defense. So to have somebody that versatile, it's unheard of in today's modern college football sport. So I thought that alone was worth the inclusion. And I got to be honest, if you took Genty and you put him on Colorado and he had to play Colorado's schedule this year, he probably still, yeah, I know. He probably still puts up decent numbers. I don't know if he puts up the astronomical numbers that he puts up. No offense to,
because you've got Shadur still throwing the football. I mean, their offense isn't built around the run like Boise's is. I mean, you can't really do that comparison. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I'm saying is if Ashton Genty played for Colorado and got the same number of carries as he did at Boise State, I'm not sure the yardage would be as astronomical as it is.
No, because Colorado's offensive line is garbage. Let's just be real. If you watch Colorado, which I watched him quite a bit this year, I like Coach Prime. I think he's exciting. I think the game management gets interesting at times. But if you want to talk about offensive line and stuff like that, Boise State's offensive line, they're missing their best two linemen the majority of the year. Their number 4 lineman is a second-team All-American. Like, that's the level that this offensive line played at this year. Even with backups. And so, you could look at the Fiesta Bowl, they're going to be at full go. I mean, they're getting everybody back, which is going to be awesome to see. And you get a ticked off Ashton Genty. I don't want to sound like the homer here, but good luck to SMU or Penn State with a pissed off Ashton Genty in the backfield for Boise State with your mauling offensive line up front. I think that, Boise, it comes down to Maddox Madsen, in my opinion. The game's going to be won or lost there at quarterback. Just to break that down, if we're going to talk football for a second, do have our fighting taters moment. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to Maddox Madsen, how he's going to be able to handle the ball if he can be effective in the passing game. Because if Penn State or SMU puts 9 in the box and you got Big Ten or ACC talent there on defense, it's a tougher, stouter task than I would say playing Wyoming. Like, let's just be real. I can recognize that, if any football fan would recognize that. But if they can get the passing game working and make it effective, then I give Boise State give me Boise State as a underdog, wearing blue helmets, white jerseys, orange pants, playing in Glendale. Like, I mean, that's like death, taxes, and that. Like, I mean, I love that moment, and Boise has thrived in Glendale, and certainly I would love to see a win and maybe take out a second mortgage and go to Miami the next week.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, one last college football note that does pertain to North Idaho. Jason Eck, moving on from the Vandals football program. Now, last week, Ryan, I talked about some coaching news. Mike McLean, the boys basketball coach at Post Falls, retiring after this year. And you already started whipping up a list of candidates that could take over, and you want to do that with the Vandals job too? Zane Hobart, Kenny Hobart, what do you think? Zane to the Vandals.
The greatest hits with Sawyer, yeah. Kenny. I'll have to tag him in this when we put it on X. But Idaho, there's some great candidates out there, some younger guys. One person in particular I would look at if I was Idaho right off the bat, I'd look at Bobby Daly Jr. over at Montana State, the co-defensive coordinator. He coached for the Vandals. I think it was on Petrino's staff in the middle of the successful part of his run there. That's somebody that I think I would absolutely give an interview to. Other one is Kyle Cephalo. He was the offensive coordinator at Utah State. I think that guy is going to be a rock star in the making. Cal hired him as the wide receivers coach, if I'm not mistaken, with Brian Harsin, and you throw Nick Rolovich in on the Cal staff too. I'm telling you, Cal, look out. Like, that could be a fun team to watch the next couple of years with that offensive brain trust there in Berkeley. But for the Vandals, yeah, Jackson, the defensive coordinator at Idaho, his players like him a whole lot. He's exciting. He's energetic. I think he could be a good fit too in Moscow. So there's some names kind of floating around there. I think if Lindgren had stuck around at Oregon State instead of going to Michigan State when their head coach left last year, I think Lindgren would have been a shoo-in to be head coach at Idaho. I don't know if they can lure him out of East Lansing to come back to Moscow, but there's some names floating around there. I mean, WSU this morning, they've got a job opening too. So Jake Dickert left for Wake Forest. So there's 7 miles of coaching vacancies there between Moscow and Pullman right now.
Yeah, the carousel is spinning.
Maybe I'll throw my name in the hat. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get your resume ready. Sean says, I regret saying anything. I was here for boys hoops. I find Lewiston and 5A very interesting. Okay, well, let's get back.
Circle the wagons. Let's go.
We'll get back on track. Let's start with your North Idaho 9 boys basketball rankings. Sean really likes Lewiston. We'll see where they actually slot in here. We will scroll it across the bottom like it's a ticker. And so here are your North Idaho 9 boys basketball rankings. First of the season, Ryan.
First edition. I like, one, I've got Bonners Ferry. We'll know how Lewiston is. I think they played Bonners Ferry the first game of the Avista tournament. So we want to know how the Bengals are. We want to know what Bonners Ferry is. We're going to find out real soon where they're going to, I think, playing each other in the very first game for both teams in that tournament. That bracket's going to be kind of fun to watch. So it should be interesting to see how Lewiston Bonners Ferry goes. 2 teams undefeated. Can they remain undefeated going into that game? We'll see. I think that one's certainly going to be very interesting because I got Lewiston at 3 right now. Coeur d'Alene at 2. They're 3-2 overall, but they're 2 losses. I mean, really good teams. Let's just be real. They beat Madison at the Pro Image Classic down there in Hawaii. But they had to play 2 just very, very tough teams from the state of Oregon, and they didn't get the win. They played respectable, but obviously not earning dubs there. But Kamia, I've got at 4. I think Kamia, I picked them early. They're my favorite at 2A right now. And they played Lakeside, and they beat Lakeside. And it was a 10-point game, but I mean, somebody got to figure out how to stop Dave Clute. Like, Dave Clute he's the truth in 2A basketball right now. And as far as in my mind, he might be one of the top 5 players in the state in boys basketball. He's just very, very, very good. He's extremely hard to guard. Plus, he's got the height. I mean, you talk about the size advantage playing 2A basketball. He's kind of like how Case Wynot was. He's just a matchup nightmare. He can play inside and outside. He can handle the ball. So they get the complementary pieces around him. Kamia right now is my early favorite for state. I could realistically see them playing Lakeside if they get seeded opposite each other. That could be a state championship game. I've got Lake City at 6, Post Falls at 7. This IEL 6A is going to be fun. Let's just be real. That is going to be a fun conference. Lake City's played 8 games already this year. They're 5-3 so far. They themselves have had some tough games too. They lost to Madison. Coeur d'Alene beat Madison, hence the separation there in the rankings. But Madison's a team that's going to be very good too. I mean, they've got size, and we know what they are. We will see them at state. And then I've got Post Falls at 7. That's a really deep team. We talked about them, how young they were years ago. And it seems like they've got like a 10th year senior class. Like, we've just been talking about them forever because they've all been starting since they were freshmen, it seems. But that's going to be a fun group to watch, especially in Coach McLean's last year with that group coaching that team. I think that this, we could expect maybe to see them pull some surprises this year. They can compete. They play defense. So that's going to be a fun team to watch. And then I've got Moscow. Priest River at 8. Surprise team. Priest River right now, not a lot of people talking about them. 5-0. I mean, their schedule hasn't been the hardest, but they've taken care of business in the games they've played. They've been beating people. They've been beating the brakes off of teams. This Priest River team could be pretty darn good. We could be sitting here in January, end of January, going into February. They still may not have a blemish on their record. Let's just be real. So, be prepared for this team to maybe make a nice run this year. I don't know if it's a state championship caliber team, but they certainly have athletes and they can play. And then Moscow at 9. We'll see what the Bears have. I mean, they haven't really played a tough schedule. They beat Kendrick, but I mean that's a 5A playing a 2A game, so you're going to have at least a little bit of depth there and size. But so we'll know more about Moscow as they go into the meat of that IEL schedule. That's my boys' top 9.
Yeah, just 2 quick notes I had on this. Priest River makes you wonder if Tyler Engelson was still there. What would the ceiling be like? The tremendous point guard who moved from Priest River to Timberlake 2 years ago. And then the other thing that jumped out to me with Post Falls is criminally underrated. They get overshadowed a little bit by Coeur d'Alene and Lake City. Certainly a guy I really like watching for Post Falls that very rarely gets any hype or acclaim. Connor Carver. Oh my God.
He's fun. Oh, he's fun to watch.
Yeah,
because I think we had him in a game last year. Didn't he go off for he was 7 of 7 from 3 to start the game?
Yeah, I don't know. It was crazy.
Yeah, he's a microwave. So that's that Post Falls team. They, like I said, they're going to give people headaches this year. They're better than people are thinking. And I know the IEL gets 1.5 bid this year. So can they steal and get that play-in game over Lake City? I mean, I think you never know what happens in districts. So anything can happen if they get a win in the district first round. Look out. I mean, Post Falls, it would be a tough out for anybody.
Yep. It's going to be really fun. Okay, so holiday tournaments coming up over the next 2 weeks. We're not going to do a show next week because we'll be right in the thick of Christmas activities and whatnot. So we'll kind of preview the holiday tournament action that's happening this weekend, which is fairly light, and then next week, which takes on significance. For boys basketball, Ryan, this week, actually, I think it starts tomorrow. Actually, starts today. Coeur d'Alene down in Las Vegas at the Jerry Tarkanian Classic once again down there in Las Vegas. They are the only team from North Idaho making the trip down this year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a tournament that, teams like to go down to Vegas and make that trip. It's a nice team building experience. We've seen the girls teams make those trips, both Lake City and Coeur d'Alene, in the past, and that's it's a nice trip with your team. Let's just be real. You want to get out of the wind and the snow and everything else, go to Vegas. Let's Christmas break. See you later. I'm out. But if they can pick up a couple wins down there, that'd be awesome. I mean, you're playing a bunch of unknowns. So it's like playing pickup ball. You just kind of show up and see what you can do. I mean, it's your best against, it's like offense on offense. And then you just kind of sit there and play zone to try to figure out what the other team's going to run. But I think that, Coeur d'Alene, with what they've got firepower offensively, I mean, they can keep up with a lot of teams. So, we'll see. I don't know if they're as strong without Logan Orchard as they were last year, but they still got a really good nucleus there with that group.
Yep. And then Coeur d'Alene is in the second toughest bracket. They're not in the Uber Elite Platinum bracket, but they are in the Nike bracket, which is the second toughest. Just a sampling of the teams that they could see: American Fork, Utah, Liberty High from Las Vegas, Pasadena High in California, Crean Lutheran, which is really good from California. One of our personal favorites here, Ryan from Nevada, Democracy Prep. Just sounds like the fakest school of all time, but they're there. They're doing things.
Bishop Sycamore going to be there too.
Yeah, so really good competition for Coeur d'Alene this weekend at the Tarkanian Classic. And then next week, Ryan, here's what we've got. Starting on the 27th, which is next Friday, Sandpoint is going to be in Chandler, Arizona to play at a tournament hosted by Chandler Prep. That's going to be pretty good competition. Logos is heading over to the Freeman Holiday Tournament. Kellogg usually goes over to that as well. But we've got the Freeman Holiday Tournament taking place over there in Rockford, Washington. You've got the Reardon Lions Club Tournament over in Reardon, Washington. Bonner's Ferry is going to go over and play in that. This might be the coolest one, I think. Post Falls is going to go to San Diego, California for the Surf and Slam Tournament. That sounds fun.
Yeah, sign me up for that one. If they need another chaperone, I'm good to go for that one.
Yeah, maybe we can go broadcast
That's right.
for sure. And then the Vista Holiday Tournament is coming up to start the new year, Ryan. We can talk about that one more in detail when we do a show in the new year, 2025. But I'll just show the bracket real quick because there are some pretty juicy matchups here. This is the opening round of games on Thursday, January 3rd at Lewis and Clark State College, January 2nd, excuse me. Kendrick is going to take on Clarkston. Colfax will play Pendleton. That's Washington and Oregon. McCall Donnelly making the trip up to play Moscow. And then the nightcap, like you said, Bonners Ferry and Lewiston at 6:00. That's going to be a really fun one for sure.
I don't want to second guess anyone, but I'm curious in how they did the seeding on that one to get Bonners Ferry and Lewiston in game 1 in the first round. Because I'm like looking at this and you get like matchups like Colfax and Pendleton, which there's some good teams there, but you're just kind of looking at spreading the matchups out to get a really good championship matchup there. In my mind, that championship game is going to happen night 1, but that's no slight to Clarkston or Kendrick. And I mean, Clarkston beat Moscow last night in a nail biter. Kendrick lost to Moscow a couple weeks ago. But yeah, and then Lewiston's going to play McCall, I think, this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So some of these games will already be happening before that Avista tournament, which is going to be good showing. You're going to get some good quality basketball there. There's some solid teams there that'll make state appearances. So, and a nice spread of classifications represented.
Yep, McCall Donnelly's got a kid named Sam Penny who's really good. He's fun to watch. So, okay, that is our boys basketball discussion, Ryan. Let's get to your North Idaho 9 girls basketball rankings. First of the season, a little more data to cull here. I was pretty much in agreement with your top 9. I didn't see much to nitpick, so here it is.
Yeah. So here it is. Number 1, Timberlake. I mean, the Tigers are the best team in North Idaho, in my opinion, right now. And until someone knocks them off, I don't think that anybody's going to argue. But they're 10-0 in the year right now and absolutely rolling. They've got some quality wins under their belt. They've defeated Grangeville. They've beat Sandpoint as well. I mean, those are 2 really quality wins for that group. This is a team, they're loaded. They're at full strength from last year. I know they were missing their best player last year, and they're back at full go with the great coaching that they've got. Coeur d'Alene at 2. They played a tough schedule. I mean, let's just be real. Your losses are to Boise, Owyhee, Eagle, and then state champion Deer Park from Washington. So people kind of scratch their heads. Deer Park. This Deer Park team, I'm telling you, that girls team is flipping legit. So they're no slouch, and so that's not a really terrible loss for the Vikings in that one. They're 5-4 right now, but they've got some nice wins under their belt too, and they come into a nice part of the schedule. So expect to see Coeur d'Alene pick up some more wins. They beat Sandpoint as well. Sandpoint sitting at the 3 spot. They're 4-2 overall. The losses to Timberlake and Coeur d'Alene so far. They've got some chances to pick up some nice wins still before the meat of the IEL schedule starts. Lapwai at number 4. Just the Wildcat team. I mean, Lapwai Prairie at 6. Lakeland kind of sandwiched in the middle there. I think you could interchange those 3 pieces as you wanted to, but Lapwai's already got a win over Prairie. This Wildcat team, I'm telling you, Wildcat basketball, it's back. We could see a matchup Lapwai Prairie at state. I mean, you could throw Prairie's got a loss, on their schedule already though too. I mean, if you want to go through it, they lost to Oakley, but they've got some nice wins too. So this Prairie team's pretty good. So it'll be interesting. Grangeville at 7. I'm not really used to seeing the Bulldogs fall that far down the list, but Grangeville's had a tough schedule. Let's just be real. They've lost to Timberlake, Prairie, Ryrie, and then they've beaten McCall twice. They beat Coal Valley Christian and blew the doors off of St. Mary's already. But this Grangeville team, we know what they brought back was their entire lineup, and we just got to see them get hot. I think that's what we're kind of waiting for, because they had to weather the storm early on in that schedule because it was tough. I mean, you talk about looking at who you've played: Ryrie, Prairie, Timberlake. Those are all teams that are going to be competing for state championships in their classifications. I mean, that's realistically what you could be looking at. Kamei 8. I think Kamei is an underrated team because they're caught in the shadow of Prairie and Lapwai. And so can Kamei kind of shrug that, maybe find their way through the minutia of the league schedule and maybe punch their ticket to state? That would be interesting to see if they can make some noise at districts and find their way in the tough way. But Genesee there at 9. And there's 3 teams in my mind that are just on the outside looking in: Priest River, Lakeside, and Deary. Priest River's schedule has been really light, but they're really good right now. I mean, Priest River is 6-1 overall, but we just haven't really seen them play the difficult schedule that you need to see kind of in your non-conference stuff before you walk in. So we'll know what Priest River is when they play Grangeville. I think that's what we're really going to see, is then they get the Kellogg Grangeville part of their slate to see what they could be. But Lakeside's had a tough schedule early on. I want to see them play Lapway. I think that game was obviously postponed. I would love to see that game take place. And then Deary's at 6-1 right now. They've got wins over Potlatch, Wallace, St. John Bosco. Their only loss was a tight one to Genesee. That Deary team's right there too. So, it's extremely tight. I think Razor's Edge, we could see a lot of teams kind of replacing each other in and out as this thing goes on.
Yeah, some big data points already, especially at the bottom of your rankings. Cammy I played Prairie last night. Prairie won by, double digits pretty significantly. Yep. You talked about Genesee. They beat Deary last night. Deary had the lead for all 3 of the first 3 quarters, and then they actually got shut out in that fourth quarter, 9-0. Genesee shut them out to come from behind and win, which was very impressive. But I still think Deary is going to they'll have something to say about it, certainly in the rematch. And then in terms of Lakeside got a big win last night over Wallace, kind of delivered the first blow between those league powers in the Scenic Idaho Conference as well. Yeah. And they won by 13 or 14, I think. So good basketball being played early on here, no doubt about it. That's our North Idaho 9 it's your North Idaho 9 for girls, not ours. You
want to get mad, blame me. Yeah, that's right. I got broad shoulders.
All right, so what's coming up for girls basketball in the holiday hoops schedule of things? Well, just like the Coeur d'Alene boys, the Coeur d'Alene girls are down at the Tarkanian Classic right now, down in Las Vegas. Unlike the boys, the girls are playing in the toughest bracket there is, the Diamond bracket, Ryan. They and Owyhee are both in that Diamond bracket. And so could we see Coeur d'Alene and Owyhee match up? That would be interesting. Certainly, you'll remember last year that Coeur d'Alene and Rigby actually played each other in the third place game at the Tarkanian Classic. And that was a really important data point for us last year to assess, the hierarchy of 6A girls basketball. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they end up facing each other. I mean, you get down tournaments like that. Like I said, you're kind of playing the best of the best, and, getting seated in that toughest bracket. I mean, it says a lot about your prior successes. I mean, because it's kind of predicated on prior results from last year, and then how can your players show up on the biggest stage? I think that's going to be a really nice test for them. And if you want to know how you would fare at state coming back in a neutral court, that's a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, because Owyhee already beat Coeur d'Alene earlier this year, 50-41. That was way back in November, right around Thanksgiving. So, I'd be very interested in a rematch between those two. And I can also confirm, Ryan, that yes, Democracy Prep is in this bracket as well with the Coeur d'Alene girls. So our favorite school there, Democracy Prep. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. All right. After that, post Christmas, Lake City heading back over to Snohomish, second year in a row for the Top of the Peak Invitational. They got all the way to the championship last year at the Top of the Peak Invite. That starts the day after Christmas, the 26th. So fortunately, not that long of a trip from Coeur d'Alene to Snohomish, about 5 hours or so there. So that's where they'll be competing starting on the 26th. And then the 27th, we talked about that Reardon Lions Club tournament. Bonners Ferry boys are going over. It sounds like the girls will head over there as well. And then, of course, the Eagle Holiday Classic gets started in Spokane. Kellogg, Priest River, Sandpoint among the teams that will be competing there. That's hosted really all throughout Spokane, but West Valley High School, the Eagles there in Spokane, host that tournament. And then that is pretty much it for girls basketball until the new year and the Avista Holiday Tournament that's taking place at Lewis and Clark State College. And we do have some teams that are going to the East Idaho Holiday Shootout. Sandpoint, Lakeland, they both went down there last year. Looks like they're going back down again this year. But again, I will share the Avista girls bracket. And again, this is January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So this is a couple of weeks off here. But you've got Moscow and Clarkston right away in the first game, day one. Colfax and Pendleton again, a couple of non-Idaho teams. Lakeland is actually going to the Avista tournament to play Grangeville. I can't wait for that game. That's going to be a fun one. Yeah. And then Lewiston is playing Shelton, Oregon.
Oregon? Is it Shelton, Oregon, or is it that's Shelton?
Oh, yeah, Shelton.
Shelton's in Washington. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Excuse me. I feel like the guy from Big Daddy. Sometimes I get my D and L mixed up. Yeah, Shelton. Yes. So Lakeland, Grangeville is kind of the game I'm circling. So
yeah, and I think the winner of that game is going to be the one that might possibly play in that championship game again. So I mean, can the Bulldogs? They play up well. I mean, we saw what they did last year, taking Sandpoint onto the wire. So I think for a first round matchup, that's a really, really good game. Lakeland and Grangeville, that's going to be a fun one. Clarkston on the top half of that bracket is legit. Let's just be real. They're full of Idaho talent too. So if we're going to talk about any Washington teams, I think you could talk about Clarkston with a number of Lapway players and even a Lewiston player now playing for Clarkston as well. So that's going to be a tough one. That Colfax team right there, they've got one of the top recruits in I don't know. I think she may have finally transferred to Spokane, but Colfax had one of the top 5 recruits in the nation playing girls basketball for them. And I believe she's since transferred to a Spokane school, if I'm not mistaken, maybe in Central Valley. But yeah, still can be a really competitive team. So that top half, I think, is going to be pretty tough with Clarkson sitting there. But that circling, if I'm going to circle one game, that Lakeland Grangeville game is going to be a heck of a lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're talking about Bryn McGahee, 5-star prospect. She committed to UW, University of Washington. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, and I'm almost certain she's since transferred schools. The portal hit early. Let's put it that way.
I'm glad to know Idaho's not the only state that has that problem. So anyway,
it's another Prepcast for another time. Yeah.
Yes. But like you said, that Clarkston girls team, some names you'll recognize: Julie DeGroot, who most recently was starring at Lewiston, and of course,
Jordan. Yeah.
What did I say?
Julie.
Oh my gosh. Julie Fisher is the coach at Lewiston. I did one of those where I comboed I obviously haven't had enough coffee today. Reese DeGroot, who was at Lewiston last year. And then of course, Jordan McCormick Marks, the sensational player that started as a freshman at Lapway and has been balling the last couple of years at Clarkston, certainly. So that'll be a lot of fun.
The Panther team is loaded. So they're very well coached too. So they're a fun team to watch. And if we're going to talk about any team from another state, we can talk about my alma mater. So yeah, that's they're really good. They're a fun team. So It's going to be a great tournament though. And we're going to hopefully have some games for y'all there too. So that should be a whole lot of fun.
Yep. Stay tuned for more details regarding that. All right. Thank you for tuning into the North Idaho Prepcast, everybody. We will take next week off for the Christmas season, and we will be back. Oh man, probably like January 2nd. Does that sound all right to you? Thursday, January 2nd? Because New Year's again kind of falls right in the middle of the week. Like
I'm going to be busy on that 31st. So there's a big game happening that day that I'm going to be kind of preoccupied for. So yeah, the 2nd will work.
Okay. So we will see you in the year 2025. Until then, for Ryan Scaggs, my name is Brandon Baney. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays from all of us here at the North Idaho Prepcast, and we'll see you in 2025 on IdahoSports.com.